Hello. So I am popping on again just to give the first impression of, or like probably part one of three of the book review for my current book that I'm reading, which is The Memory Keeper's Daughter by Kim Edwards. I must say, so far, this book, I really like the way that this book is laid out. Um, so, unlike the last book where the chapters were like 3 or 4 pages, this one is just kind of like a typical novel or whatever it is. But they do an exceptional, Kim Edwards does an exceptional job at detailing and describing the scenes and everything. So you almost kind of feel like you are wherever the character is. For instance, the book starts out and it's about a woman and her husband, a married couple, and the woman is pregnant. And they live in Kentucky and they are like in the middle of a snowstorm, right? Um, but when reading this book, it's so descriptive. Um, it's almost, you can almost see the scene in front of you. And I just absolutely love it. I mean, yes, she kind of spends a lot of time describing, the whole thing, the wooden floors, the house, the snow against the windows, the wife's pregnant stomach, and things like that. Um, but it just presents such it presents such a vivid scene in your mind where you almost feel like you're one of the characters in the book. Like you can just see and imagine everything that's going on. And I really like that so far. Um, this book is fairly long. Like I said, it's about 400 pages, and so far I've only gotten to page 98. But the book starts out in, what is it? I think it's 1965, 1964. And like I said, it's a couple. So far, it's a couple, a husband and a wife. The husband is a doctor. Let me say this. There's one thing that they did for, like, I want to say it was maybe like the first two chapters that I found to be very interesting. They did not say the name of the husband or the wife. Not just the name of, they didn't say the name of the husband, the wife, or the nurse. These were the three main characters that were in, I believe it was maybe like the first two chapters of the book. Maybe the first one, but it could have been like the first two chapters. They simply referred to them as the doctor, the doctor's wife, and the nurse. The only two names that you knew were Phoebe and Paul, who were the names of the twins that the wife had delivered. Um, the wife was pregnant during this snowstorm. Um, you know, Everything was like, pretty much the whole city was kind of like shut down or whatever. And she goes into labor, and um, the it winds up being where the husband has to deliver his wife's baby. And he had called one of his good friends who was also, I think he was a OBGYN, to help him come and deliver the baby. And unfortunately, he kind of got into an accident on the way there, so he had to deliver the baby himself. He was not an OBGYN. He was, what was it? Uh, I can't remember what kind of doctor he was, but he dealt with the bones in the body. But he was a really good doctor. He was a very patient doctor, and so he was able to deliver the baby along with his nurse, who he they worked together, and she trusted him, and he trusted her as well too. The first child to be born was a boy. His name was Paul. He was very healthy. And then all of a sudden, she goes into labor again, and or she starts having additional contractions or whatever, and she delivers a girl. Now, in the 60s, they they were using gas, right, during pregnancies. And so when she started, so that she wouldn't like feel all of the pain during the birth, so that the wife wouldn't feel all of the pain during the birth, her husband told the nurse to give her the gas, and she delivered the second child, which was a baby girl, and her name was Phoebe. It was immediately visible that the girl did have some severe medical issues, and she was born with Down syndrome. Um, instead of, so the doctor made the decision to tell the nurse that he did not want his wife to know, and he wrote down an address of an institution that he wanted her to take the little girl to. Just kind of like, send her off to a place and just kind of let her live her life there, since she was going to have a lot of, um, you know, she just wasn't going to be a normal, kind of like healthy child. And so the nurse kind of did as she was told, and on her way to the institution, she had the baby girl in a box, and she got there, and she sees this place, and it's just kind of like very sterile, like it just doesn't, I guess it just kind of looks like an institution, and she could not bring herself to actually leave the little girl there. So she decides to take the baby home, and she pretty much starts to care for the baby herself. Um, Back at the hospital, the wife eventually wakes up, and she, because they had kind of given her gas throughout her pregnancy, there were some things that she was aware, and then spaces of time where she didn't know what happened, because they had put her under, and then she would wake up again. Um, but eventually, the the husband broke down, and he told her that she did have twins. However, instead of telling her that the little girl that was born with Down syndrome, he actually told his wife that the little girl had died, and that the baby had been buried. So at this point in time, this really is when everybody's life shifts. And these pretty much are the three main characters: the nurse, and then the nurse, whose name we come to find out is Carolyn. The wife, her name is Nora, and the husband, the doctor, his name is David. I'm sorry, his name is David. And then of course you have the baby boy, Paul, who was being raised by his parents, David and Nora, and then you have baby Phoebe, who is being raised by Carolyn. When these babies are born, it really shifts. It changes everybody's life. Um, and it changes everybody's life because it's like it's so Nora, as she's trying to accept the fact that another she had another baby, she it is very hard for her that she never got a chance to see the baby. She never got a chance to see it. And David pretty much almost like becomes a different person. Their relationship, you can see the dynamic of their relationship kind of shift because he's clearly keeping a secret from her. She is dealing with the trauma of having had two babies and not being able to see one of them. And so, what she does is her sister comes over and she is just like in a constant state of grief, and she decides to have a funeral for this baby. And so she has a funeral for this baby, which she kind of posts the ad in the newspaper or some sort of, some sort of like magazine publication or whatever, news publication. And and during that time is when Carolyn sees this, and she makes the decision. She immediately calls David's medical office, and she talks to him because she hasn't gone into work. So so David doesn't even know at this point in time that she has the baby. He's thinking that the baby is in the institution. Nora is thinking that the baby is dead. Meanwhile, the baby, Phoebe, is actually living with Carolyn. So when Carolyn sees this thing for the funeral of the baby, she immediately calls David's office. David rushes over to her apartment and she lets him know. She says, "Hey, I did not leave baby Phoebe in the institution." And he's like, "What?" He doesn't get angry, but he tells her, he says, "You know what? You do what you want to do. But whatever decision you decide to make, whatever kind of like big decision you decide to make, please just notify me. Let him know." And I'm assuming that he's saying that so that so that he can kind of keep the lie going. I'm not quite sure why he says that it's because the way that they're describing him, it's really like he doesn't really care about the baby anymore. Like he's really distancing himself. So I haven't quite figured out why he really wanted to know um, what she would do with the baby yet. Um, so, anyways, so after that, the next day, she goes to the funeral. The baby is in the car, and she really just kind of like observes the funeral from far away. Nobody sees her, and then she decides the following day that no, she decides that day that she is going to leave Kentucky. She packs up her things. She decides to get rid of her apartment and she heads towards Pittsburgh. And this is like where I'm at right now in the book. And so um, you have these three people with these two babies that really nobody kind of their lives are it's like they're kind of like intertwined with one another, but they don't really know yet. The wife Nora is still grieving. They've decided to sell their old house and they've moved into another house. But I guess like the feeling of a parent is um, and I'm not a parent, but it's like she has this feeling that the baby is there. And that is her constant struggle. Her constant struggle of trying to just let it go. And David keeps telling her, "Oh, Nora, why are you holding on? Why are you holding on?" And she's trying her best for the sake of her marriage, but it's like it's like the baby just keeps pulling her back. Um, so I really like what I'm reading so far. I really like the book so far. I'm really interested to see. Probably in about a few days, I've been able to read a few pages a night. So probably maybe in like a week I'll come back on, and give an update as to where I am. But but like I was saying, I really am interested to see how their lives actually come together and what happens with David. David seems to be very, very cut off. They also don't talk a lot about his past, which is very interesting as well too, because it's almost like Nora is married to David and she doesn't really know who he is. He doesn't really talk about much. They kind of go into when she first met him and how he met her and everything. But ever since she had the baby, and this situation with baby Phoebe, um, he has shown sparks of anger, um, and I don't know where that's coming from. I want to say that it may come from maybe something that happened when he was young. I have no idea, but it's also very interesting because I think he went to school in Pittsburgh. I think he went to college in Pittsburgh. And with Caroline and Phoebe moving to Pittsburgh, it's going to be interesting because I think there may be some kind of like crossover or something, or they may find something out. I don't know. That's what I'm thinking so far, but I could be wrong. Um, anyways, like I said, that's just the first little review that I have of The Memory Keeper's Daughter. Again, good novel so far by Kim Edwards. Um, so that is about it. Um, I guess, yeah, I will see you guys um, in about a week with my second part review of this book. And I hope you guys are enjoying my video. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And have a good day. Bye.